About a week ago, my father passed away. It wasn't expected. His health had not been in decline, and from what we knew, he had no major health concerns besides some things he was managing. We didn't know how long he was going to be in the hospital. I even started growing my beard out just as a visual representation of how long he'd been in there. But as the weeks went on, he continued to get worse and worse. It's like the floodgates had opened, and this whole summer we've been in the ICU. So, with him having now passed, I want to talk a bit about him today and talk about life. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about him. I don't think I've talked much about my dad here on the channel. I think I might have mentioned him perhaps in some older discussion videos. But obviously I'm not just going to bring him up in regular standard history videos. But my dad was my best friend. I'm an only child, only son, no brothers and sisters. So when I was growing up, my father and I just became so incredibly close. We shared almost all the same interests and hobbies, from Star Wars to Godzilla to Lord of the Rings to music and TV shows and movies and just everything. We could talk about all of this stuff just endlessly. And one of our biggest shared interests was Japan. We both loved Japan, Japanese history and Japanese culture. I think what got him first interested in Japan was actually all the way back when he was a kid. When in 1967, he went and saw the James Bond movie You Only Live Twice, which takes place in Japan. And this really kickstarted his interest, and from there it only grew. And I know he took a Japanese history and culture, I think, course when he was in college in the 70s. And I have his notebook that has all of his notes talking about all the different historical periods and terms. And it's so fascinating to go back and read through his own journey into Japanese history. It's so awesome. And he even went on to read, James Clavell's Shogun, and was a fan of the 1980 miniseries when it came out. But then as I came into being and as I grew up, I developed my own fascination with Japanese history on my own. I don't think he necessarily directly influenced it, but it was through playing video games, and it was through watching movies and eventually reading books that my own interest in Japan really started to blossom. And this is where we truly also began to share this interest now. And I remember, playing endless hours of Samurai Warriors with him and watching tons of old, samurai films from the Criterion collection that we would go pick up. We both just really loved Japan. And in 2019, him and I even went to Japan. By this point, me and him and my mom, we traveled a lot throughout the world, and him and my mom traveled a lot before I was born even. But for me, one of the perks of being an only child was being able to travel a lot more, it seemed like. But for this trip in 2019, it was just me and my dad. And it was here for around 2 weeks. We were with a Rhodes Scholar tour group, and we started in Tokyo, and we went west, and we went up into, rural Nagano, and we went down eventually into Kyoto, and then over into Hiroshima, and finally we ended in Kyushu. I didn't realize this at the time. And we always, him and I were always talking about going back, and we always were making plans about what we're going to do next in Japan. But I didn't realize that this trip that him and I took was really the the best trip I'll probably ever go on. Just me and Dad in Japan, exploring Japan, just having such a wonderful time just together. And then a year later, in 2020, as I've discussed before, I was supposed to move to Japan. I was supposed to, start a new position teaching English. I had an apartment picked out, and I was supposed to be living in Mitoyo, which is in Shikoku. It's a very, very beautiful place. And this was such an exciting time, all this anticipation for my move to Japan and getting ready and all these things. Getting my, my temporary, Japanese driver's license, looking at my apartment, like I said, figuring out where the school is, all these fun things. And my dad was just so excited to help me with this and help me on this journey. And he wanted to come with me and help me move in and all these things. And my dad even started taking Japanese language courses here at a local college. He was just so relentless in this drive to learn Japanese and to be there with me. And I think he took every Japanese course that the college offered. But sadly, as we know, in around March of 2020, we know that a lot of countries were going into lockdown, and because of the coronavirus. And the day before I was supposed to leave, the U.S. went into lockdown. So I didn't end up going at that time. But there were other opportunities for me to go, but life kept getting in the way. And finally, by 2022, I said enough was enough, and I repivoted my whole life, and I decided to become instead a teacher here. And I know that made my dad sad. And he kept asking me, are you still interested in Japan? Do you still love Japan? Do you still like Japan? And of course the answer is yes, Dad. I love Japan. I'm still interested in Japan, but I think it was hard for him to see it at the time. It's strange. He wasn't able to necessarily see that fire, that interest for Japanese history, that it was still burning inside me. But even with my YouTube channel going, maybe I just wasn't showing it as much as I had before. I'm not sure. And I know there were times where I kind of sunk into this bit of a, maybe I wasn't outwardly projecting my interest in Japan as much. I don't know. And I know he did have a hard time actually understanding YouTube and my YouTube channel. When I first started it, my dad was in his mid-60s by that point. And I know he was maybe a bit confused by it. Not confused in what I was doing, but confused, at what it could be. And I know my mom certainly was too. And it wasn't until I actually started earning, money from YouTube and getting sponsorships, and seeing all the wider effect it had, all the subscribers and viewers, that he finally came to, actually really get proud of it. And proud of, it and the connections I made and just everything. And one of the last things he did tell me before going into the hospital, just this last spring, was just how shocked and how surprised that, I even had several videos over or close to 1 million views, which I thought he already knew, but I guess not. And he was just so, taken aback by that and just, happy about it. Happy and proud that people were coming to listen to his son talk about Japanese history. My father was a very intelligent man. I think he's way smarter than I'm ever going to be in my lifetime. I know. He had a bachelor's degree in physics and a master's degree in environmental science, and then beyond that he took so many courses, extra graduate courses for one reason or another, for extra things he did. He was always a lifelong learner, and he was proud of that he was proud of always trying to expand his knowledge. And in his own career, he certainly had a great, wide range of accomplishments and things he was very proud of himself. But I'm sad because I don't think he really ever got the full recognition he deserved for certain things. And I know he deserved much more, and I think he wished that too. Certainly with the direction his career would end up taking. So I think by the end of his life, he was truly happy that I was able to have this reach. That so many people were coming to listen to his son talk about Japanese history of all things. There's so much more I wish I could have said to my dad. So much more I wish I could have done with my dad and learned from my dad. I kick myself every time I think about, times when I was just here in my apartment doing something when I could have been at home with him. It's crazy to think he was just right there, and I could have been doing stuff with him, and I know I did a lot with him as it was. I was always doing things with him. I get it, but I always could have been doing more, and I just wish I was doing even more than I already was doing. My dad was 70. He had just turned 70. And in my book, in our current day and age, 70 is still young. He had still so much time left. And I'm angry, and I'm always going to be angry about all the time left that now I don't have. So one message I want to send to everyone and anyone watching this video is, please spend more time with the people you love. Cherish every moment. And just live life to the fullest with the people around you, because you never know what can happen. I was worried that, if he were to pass, when he passed, would it shatter my interest in Japan actually, completely? Would it damage it forever? Because, every time I think about Japan or anything, it always connects to him. Japan connects to him now just because of all that, because of our shared interest and everything. So I was worried it was going to be difficult to continue the channel. But now that it's happened, and we've had a week, and I've had a lot of time to think, it hasn't hurt my interest in Japan. And, if anything, it made me more eager to carry on, because it's made me want to continue to get better, to continue to expand it, to become more professional, just in whatever way I can. Because I know everything going forward from here, everything I do now, everything I'm going to try to accomplish, it's all going to be for him. It's all going to be for my dad. And that includes, of course, this YouTube channel, obviously. This channel and every video here is all for my dad. The entire channel itself, every video already on it, and every video going forward, I dedicate to my dad. It's all for him. So, I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking around this long if you did. Thank you for your support and your understanding. And like I said, I highly encourage you to spend more time with the people you love. I'm not sure yet, but I might need some more time before I start working on my next video. Obviously, the channel is, not stopping, and I'm not going anywhere, but I just might need a little bit of time. We'll see. There's just still so much that has to settle. But I want to say thank you. thank you for being here. And thank you for listening to me talk about my dad.